Hey everyone, good morning. How we doing? Chuck Silver, Brian Jester here to bring you another Occupy Fantasy Best Ball Mania stream. How we doing this morning, Brian?
I'm good. It's afternoon for me. I know it's early in the morning for you over there on the West Coast,
Yep,
but
can you hear me?
yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, can you hear me?
I'm here, Chuck. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you guys can hear me. If you guys in the chat can hear me, give me a thumbs
Hear
up.
Brian. Hold on, guys. Sorry, 1 second. I cannot hear Brian on my end. Trying to figure out why.
Chuck, can you hear me now?
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
All good.
Okay, so let's just go ahead and jump into a Best Ball Mania stream. That was one of my live streams that I had going on. If anyone wants to hop in the stream with us, looks like we have a fresh room.
Oh, nice. How many of these have you done so far, Chuck? The Best Ball Manias?
Best Ball Manias, I think I've only done like 13. Probably half of my drafts have been on stream. For the puppies and poodles and like all of those, I'm pretty close to 100.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit more than I expected to because I have a set bankroll that I set aside that I wanted to use for best ball season, and
Sure.
it's June 13th, and I'm halfway through it, so I gotta plan out the rest of my how I'm gonna handle the rest of these drafts.
I know. Well, maybe you gotta hit some pick'ems or something, increase that bankroll. That way you can can fire a little more here in July and August.
Well, it's funny. The dance, the NBA playoff contest was a $10 entry, and I put 50 entries in there, and that was just pure profit from one of the pick'em bonuses. I think for the March Madness one, actually, I hit a 80x or whatever they were offering,
Oh, nice.
or 40x maybe. So that was a pretty cool one.
How'd you do in the NBA one?
I had none in the finals, a couple in the quarterfinal. I wasn't on the Heat at all. I was on the Bucks making the finals, so
Ah,
unfortunately, I just completely overlooked. Like I drafted Jimmy and Bam a little bit late, but I did not plan. I just didn't have the right combo, I guess, to get to the finals. I did have one in the warm up contest, which was like the 10 max $5 or $3 entry baby, and I finished 87th with two active players.
oh wow.
So that was cool. Out of I think it was like a 104-person final, 6 or 7 people had zero active players. So just something to remember when the NFL playoffs come, that people just are going to build teams that are drawing dead.
Yep, 100%. I mean, do you think if you had 150 entries in the NBA one, you would have had any heat exposure, like any heat stacks? Because I remember when you were doing streams or in that NBA strategy video, you talked about stacking different combinations. Would you have had any heat if you made 150?
Like I probably would have. It's more just I didn't have the right combo of Heat with Nuggets, and also whoever else I needed to get me to the next round. So like
Mhm.
I'm sure I had rosters because the 5 winning players were Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and I think Aaron Gordon made it over MPJ into the winner. And so if you just had those five, and then whoever the earlier round darlings that you needed to help you advance, you're probably in a good spot. I think 4 people chopped the warm up. So I imagine a few people chop the dance, but I mean, chopping in these tournaments is not terrible when it's the player pool is so condensed. The
That's true.
combinations of rosters are much less unique than they will be in the NFL.
That's very true.
So
Um, the other thing I want to ask you, Chuck, I don't know if you got the news this morning since you woke up, but this Stefan Diggs news, he's not at mandatory minicamp. Sean McDermott said he's very concerned. I don't know, like, what type of vibes that's sending. Like, is he very concerned because they don't know where Diggs is, or they're very concerned because Diggs decided not to show up at minicamp?
well, if he's not answering the phone and they don't know what he is, it sounds like a bigger problem than football. But I thought maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought I saw something about, was he not at the voluntary OTAs? Is that what I saw before? Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think he was there either, and then I guess he didn't show up today. And I guess the only reason I believe that something's not wrong off the football field is I think it was Schefter or Pelissero tweeted something about his contract and said it's an unusual situation indeed, or something along those lines, right? So I guess it is contract related. And given his frustration, was it the last playoff game when he was just so frustrated when they lost, he wasn't getting the ball. So maybe it has something to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising. I want to say it doesn't surprise me, but it's obviously surprising. Like Stephon Diggs last year was a player who I thought was going to compete for the top wide receiver in fantasy football, and he kind of was there, but then he just had games where he didn't do anything. Do you think that maybe, well, so assuming this is fine and everything happens, he shows up tomorrow, whatever. Do you think Stephon Diggs has an opportunity to compete for wide receiver one this year?
It's a good question because if he is truly unhappy with where he is, I mean, there aren't many situations where he's going to have it better, right? Like, where else is he going
Yeah.
to go? Kansas City, maybe, right? Like, no other team is really, if he wants numbers and wants to win, like, it's not, there really aren't many spots like that. So I think they'll work it out. And um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he has true number one overall upside. But I guess the key is they didn't really add anybody in free agency in the draft, right? Just a tight end. So uh, from a cap ceiling perspective, I don't think much has changed there. So I think he has
Mhm.
an outside shot for sure. And I mean, there's a reason he's going in round one. So
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting because I think so. I did see a couple comments about it talking about maybe Gabe Davis's value increases, and maybe I'm just not a believer in Gabe Davis. But I mean, obviously their wide receivers value is going to go up, but um, I mean that offense might kind of seems like it might be a disaster if Stephon Diggs is gone. Like all the Buffalo Bills players' value just kind of goes down, right?
everyone's except for probably Khalil Shakir's, who's going in the 18th
Right,
round, right?
right,
Who
right.
I've been drafting a decent amount of. I don't think they have much competition for wide receiver three there. I'm sure they'll have more two tight end sets now with Knox and Kincaid, but I like Shakir a lot. And honestly, I'm 20 drafts deep so far. Mostly just been drafting puppies just to get my feet wet and get some experience drafting. And because I'm so correlation heavy, I've actually ended up with a decent amount of Gabe Davis so far. Just because when I end up drafting players that need Buffalo correlation, by the time or where I've been picking, Allen and Diggs haven't been available, and
Yeah.
Gabe Davis fits nicely if I need a receiver. But the nice thing is, I mean, they have players all throughout the draft, right? If you need running backs, they have Cook and Harris in the middle rounds, Kincaid, and even Knox late and Shakir in the last round. So that is one nice thing about a high level offense like that. They're spread throughout the entire fantasy draft. So if you need that correlation, there's plenty of spots to pick them.
Well, you mentioned the correlation. It's funny because the Buffalo New England game is one of my most stacked games from
Mhm.
week 17, and I'm absolutely not targeting that game, but I'm drafting so much Juju and a bit of Ramondre, and then just any other Bills player I grab. Dawson Knox is really easy to grab at end of drafts. Damian Harris is really appealing at his ADP, so I'm unintentionally stacking that game pretty heavily.
Yeah, me too. And I think people are finally starting to catch on that all the Patriots skill position players are too cheap, particularly Tyquan Thornton. We've seen him be
Mhm.
the second biggest ADP mover over the last week. We got reports that he was running with the ones in camp and some positive reports about how he looked. And then we get the Mike Gesicki news and his ADP is up a little bit. So, I've been drafting those guys too. And I think as the summer wears on, people will start to realize that those guys should be drafted higher.
Well, Tyquan Thornton specifically, I think it was Davis Maddock. He actually was one of his three featured receivers in his Twitter breakdown for today of the three guys past pick 100. So,
Well, we'll
um,
see that number rise a little more then, I guess.
yeah, I mean, these popular best ball Twitter personalities, they make a couple posts about a player. Like you'll see the change that day if you're doing drafts.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. So who were the other two guys? I saw his tweet, but I forget who the other two guys were. I think Nico Collins and someone else, right?
And Tyler Boyd, yeah, and those are all guys I'm in on except for Tyquan Thornton. So maybe I need to draft Tyquan Thornton a little bit more, especially since I'm so heavy on Juju.
Oh yeah,
If I'm sitting here with all my Juju and I watch Tyquan Thornton have a good year, then I'm still gonna have more Juju either way, but kind
right.
of just a little bit, I guess, since I'm drafting so many teams anyway.
Yeah, right for sure. So you get the three pick here, Chuck. Nigel's in the chat. What's up, Nigel? He said, "I know in Chris's video for the 4 to 6 strategy, 4 through pick 6 strategy at 5, he's taking Cup. What do you guys think about that? So I don't think he'll take Cup at 3, Chuck. I don't know. Maybe you will. I don't know. But what do you think about Cooper Cup and his bounce back?
I'm okay with it. I'm in on him. So to me, number one pick is Justin Jefferson. The number two pick is Jamar Chase, and then number three, I'm just mixing up between Tyreek Hill, Cooper Cup, and Christian McCaffrey. I believe in Cooper Cup. He got hurt if he's not hurt, he should do pretty well. He was, I think he was still number one in points per game last year before he got hurt.
Yep.
And then Tyreek Hill was on pace to smash wide receiver one last year when Tua was playing. And so I think they're both fine picks. I don't think you can go wrong. I'm trying to get kind of an even balance between the two, I guess. And then Christian McCaffrey here too. I was drafting him a little bit more, but it's just to me, if you're picking in the 1 through 5 spot, the riders or the running backs in the second round are so powerful compared to the receivers in this range. So I
Totally.
kind of just prefer to go Tyreek Hill or Cooper Cup first, and then grab like Josh Jacobs or Derrick Henry or Ramondre or something.
That's fair. I mean, and speaking of Diggs not showing up, I guess we also got news maybe in between the stream and the last best ball stream that Jacobs might sit out or wants to renegotiate, maybe not take the franchise tag, right? So, I mean, could we not see him in Las Vegas and mess up some correlation for these early picks?
It would mess up a lot for me. I think I have like 20% Josh Jacobs right now. He's a pretty easy click for me at that pick. So are we? What do you think, Tyreek Hill or Cooper Cup for this one?
Um, let's go Tyreek. Let's go Tyreek. I
Let's
think
do
it'll
it.
be interesting. I mean, because it's like you said, it's really easy to correlate coming back because you take Tyreek Hill here, you can get what Pollard on the comeback, you can get Mark
Mhm.
Andrews in round 3 or Lamar in round 3, um, all kinds of different ways. But I guess the question, and maybe we don't care about it as much in the smaller drafts. We'll care about it in Best Ball Mania probably, but I know you talked about with Chris the unique combos. Like I imagine the sharper drafters who care about correlation are taking those guys with Tyreek Hill. Does that concern you at all, or are you just trying to mix it up when you do take Tyreek?
So I've been thinking about this unique stuff, trying to get unique combos, whatever. And I'm just focusing on if I can get the perfect combo of these guys, I'm going to take it because it's not available every time. And
Sure.
so, I mean, what's the perfect combo here? Tyreek, Tony Pollard, Mark Andrews, and Lamar Jackson falls to 46 or something.
Probably, yep.
Um, so, so I don't know. If the perfect combo is available, I'll take it. If not, then, try and get creative, I guess.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You know, it's funny. So, like I said, I've only done 20 or so drafts so far, and I
Mhm.
actually have 25% Justin Jefferson. That's how the variance in the number one and number two pick has fallen to me so far.
Just running like crazy. I don't think I haven't gotten a number one pick in Best Ball Mania yet. Like I said, I'm only through like 13 drafts, so it's fine. But or
Right.
maybe I've gotten one. But with the number two pick and the puppies and the poodles, I have like 20% Jamar Chase overall, and I'm never taking him at one. So I'm getting him allotted two, and then sometimes he's available at three. So Jamar Chase is going to be one of my guys this year.
Damn. That must be nice. I mean, let me ask you this. If let's just say this variance continues for you and you end up,
Mhm.
yeah, let's say because we want a roughly equal exposure to these first round guys, unless there's a very unique situation. But 8% of each of these guys. Let's say you end up with 15% Chase and like 3% Jefferson somehow across all of your entries. Is there any way to
Mhm.
balance that, or is there any way to lean into that variance, or what are your thoughts if just somehow you can't get enough Jefferson, you end up with too much Jamar Chase?
Uh, I don't know how you could really balance it. I think you kind of just lean more into the leverage and draft more Jordan Addison, right? Kind
Yeah,
of you
right.
have all the Jamar Chase. Hope Justin Jefferson doesn't do what he did last year, I guess, and hope Jordan Addison picks up whoever else is on that team, I guess. But I mean, it's pretty hard to make up for it. If it was any other player, you could just pick them a pick early. But
Right.
you pretty much need the number one pick for Justin Jefferson. I think overall, like in the puppies, not in Best Ball Mania, I think I'm over the field on Justin Jefferson too. So I've also gotten lucky there.
Okay. All right. Good enough. I've had this dilemma because a lot of the times I'm, at least so far, have been drafting Baltimore for correlation,
Mhm.
and Bateman, Flowers, and even Odell in rounds 8 through 10, or even 7 through 10, have been the easy correlation picks if you miss out on Andrews or Lamar Jackson. H-
Yeah.
How do you think that wide receiver room plays out? I mean, I do think they pass the ball more. I don't think they'll turn into like 600 pass attempts, Tom Brady, but I do think they will pass the ball a lot more. It's just all those guys are basically bunched up, and I don't think the field even knows. I mean, based
Right.
on ADP, how it's going to play out.
Well, who do you think we should go for here? I'm thinking T. Higgins possibly, or Mark Andrews.
Yeah, we can go
Seems a
T.
little early to take Mark Andrews though.
Should we can get both? We'll take T and then come back with Mark Andrews.
Yeah, my thinking here. So we want to take T, right? Because there's going to be 4 picks before we go again, and then if I get one of these running backs or Mark Andrews, I'm fine. So,
Yep.
but with Zay Flowers and Bateman, so their ADPs are so close now.
Yeah.
Um, and I find myself clicking on Flowers before I click on Bateman, and I think it's because of Bateman's injury history. But I'm usually a player. I'm usually like a drafter who doesn't really care about injury history. But I don't have enough of a preference between these two guys, and I know that Zay Flowers is more fresh, I guess. So do you have any difference between these guys?
I guess the only thing is like we saw Bateman do it last year before he got hurt. Um,
Hmm.
and then you see like the AB comp for Flowers, and clearly they took him early, so they believe in it as well. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think a report came out today that Bateman's missing time already with a cortisone shot or something. So it's just like, come on, man, just just stay healthy through the off season.
Hmm.
So I get it. I get it. I think I'm just trying to get equal exposure. I'm higher on the passing game than I think the field is so far.
Hmm.
So I'm glad to just take as much of those guys whenever they're available, and it makes sense for my team.
Well, these two teams, Baltimore and Miami, they must have a really good playoff schedule because I'm getting over on them. Like I'm drafting a bunch of CD Lamb and Tony Pollard, so I'm getting that Dallas correlation with Miami.
Yep.
And then Baltimore, yeah, I'm drafting a lot of Ayuk and then one of the Jacksonville receivers. So
Yeah.
really easy teams to stack.
They're super easy. They're super easy. After this pick, I'll have an exposure question for you, but we'll see here. So Hurts, Mahomes, Henry is gone. Are you thinking Andrews here, or are you thinking another running back?
Oh man, Andrews makes sense, right? It's okay to take Andrews here. I'm between Andrews or Ramondre. It
Like I said,
just
I'm a correlation sucker, so that's
Yeah,
why.
we're going max correlation. I talked about it on the last stream a little bit. Like, I'll try to keep this up during the stream. So these are my week 17 exposures right here. And just in case this is your first time on the stream, this is week 15 matchup, week 16 matchup, week 17 matchup. And then when it's highlighted in green, that means one of my skill position players has a correlation. And if it's highlighted in gold, that means my quarterback has a correlation. I don't have a quarterback yet. But so by the end of the draft, I find that most drafts, I can get about 14 players with a week 17 correlation. And then usually the other 4 players will usually have some kind of week 15 or 16 correlation. I can't see that here. But do you find yourself getting most of your correlation or like everyone on your team correlated, I guess?
I actually have been. Again, I've been using our Stack Seeker, and just for the uninitiated, this plugin that you have, just explain it really quickly what it is. That way we can give them a shout out, and people, if they want to use it, they can.
Oh yeah, this is called Spike Week. It's a premium tool. I paid for a yearly subscription last year, so I still have access to it. But it's the problem is it's so hard to draft without it. I can't draft on my phone because I'm so reliant. I don't have these memorized, and
Yep,
through
same.
all these drafts, you would think I would, but it's so difficult to. It's just I don't know the $200 a year I think I paid for it is worth just having the playoff correlations on my screen. So
Fair enough, because at least
um,
because we have the Stack Seeker. Obviously, it's a different tab, and it's really if you're used to this, then I certainly understand that. But yeah, using either this or Stack Seeker,
yeah,
I've pretty much every player is correlated in some capacity on my team. I'm able to get 18 out of 18, and really, what I've been trying to do, Chuck, is get um, like 2 to 3 full stacks, like 15,
yes.
16, 17 for 2 or 3 different teams, and
Mhm.
usually I'm able to accomplish that.
Most of the time I'll have a 15, 16, 17 on at least my main quarterback. If I can get it on my second quarterback, if it's in easy correlations, and that's great. And so, yeah, same thing. Just keep doing it. And then, if you're interested in Spike League later, like you can message me to ask more. Just join their Discord. But they also track your exposures, and there's some settings you can turn on, like what combination or like what percentage of Tyreek teams did I draft Mark Andrews on or Lamar Jackson on, and it's really helpful just to see if maybe you're overdrafting this combination, and you can just try to mix it up a little bit.
Nice. Okay, cool. That's good
But
to know.
you had a question about exposures?
Yeah. Before I get to that, though, one other question: how many people do you think, like, what percentage of the field, whether it's in Best Ball Mania or just overall, do you estimate are max correlating like that with 15, 16, 17 for their main quarterback, or like multiple 15, 16, 17 correlations?
Less people than you think. I actually just had to re-download this add-on from the Firefox store, and it said only 196 people are using it, and it's only available on Firefox. And so I actually thought more people would be using it, but I know there's a couple other tools out here that accomplish the same thing. But that was kind of a low number to me, given how popular I guess they are on Twitter and in their Discord. And so I know a lot of people aren't going to be willing to dish out the $200 a year if they're only drafting, a dozen teams or whatever. But
Right.
I actually don't think it's that much, because then you see people on the other side too, like, why are we correlating for week 17? We have to make it through the regular season. And so that advantage that we have, I think that once we get to those playoff weeks, it's so big.
Right, because unless you're just like massively differentiating from ADP or deterring from ADP, right? Your team's going to be
Hmm.
pretty good anyways, right? As long as you're
Yeah.
sticking to ADP values, you're mostly going to be fine. And like I've said on the streams I've been on, I there's only a couple players maybe that I truly feel like, oh, I need to take these guys above ADP or below ADP. Mostly,
Hmm.
I'm just falling in line with ADP and just ebbing and flowing and getting exposures right. And if you draft a bunch of teams and you're correlating that way, you're going to get roughly average number of teams through, maybe a little less, right?
Yeah.
But once you get there, you have the big advantage. So I'll let you draft your pick here.
It's like I am not in on Travis Etienne, but I start to get interested when he's falling and I have some kind of correlation.
Yep.
Um, are you in on Etienne?
No, not at all. But same boat.
Yeah.
When it makes sense, I will.
Right. Like, because here with Jacksonville, I can get Zay Jones or Christian Kirk later. I
Yep.
think I'm just going to take my go-to here, and it's Terry McLaurin. So we actually had a question in the Discord a couple days ago. I didn't have a chance to answer it myself, but you guys got to it about, let's say there's no one correlated within 10 picks. Like, let's say ETN wasn't there, and are we drafting best player available? Are we reaching 10, 15 picks to get our guy? And I think the answer is it depends. I think most of the time, like in the situation that we were just in right now with Terry McLaurin, I'm pretty much just going to take the best player available. It's still early enough that we're going to start secondary and I guess third stacks with some of these playoff guys, and you can even kind of see that Terry McLaurin
Yep.
has that correlation with Brandon Ayuk, who I plan on taking with my next pick. So yeah, sometimes it doesn't show up here, but if you're using the stack seeker and you have these teams up, you would have noticed that Baltimore and Washington both have that correlation with Brandon Ayuk, who I knew I was taking with my next pick when I took Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I had that up on my screen as well on my side, and I saw that Washington double correlated. So certainly fine doing that there. And because I mean, again, through 20 or so drafts that I've done, there's been maybe in every single round, like 1 to 2 picks where I've been like, "I don't think there's any correlation I can make here." And it's normally like round
Yeah,
4 or 5 or round 3 or 4. Very
yeah.
rarely do you have to stray from like this web of correlation. So I think you can always find something. It's a very rare case where you do. And like I told whoever asked that in Discord, it's like I'm just gonna take best player available, whoever balances my exposures the best.
This dude really took Brandon Ayuk at 50. That's one of the early. This guy was like pick 65 last week, and then someone posts one Twitter article,
Yeah.
and he jumps up a half a round. Man, that's So we got sniped here. Man, I am not in on George Kittle, but are we doing it for the correlation?
Yeah, I think we're going to, right?
The problem is there's no other Niner that's relevant after George Kittle. No offense to those guys. And
Yep.
so here, I think reaching for George Kittle here, that's a bit of a reach because we're passing up still on Godwin and a couple, you know, really good running backs, I guess, and Justin Fields. But ADP is not going to matter, especially we already have Mark Andrews. And so we got kind of a unique double tight end build here. So we're going to be done with tight end, of course.
Yep.
And double tight end, I don't hate as much as double elite quarterback, because at least double elite tight end now we can probably go a little bit lighter on wide receiver. Like we can stop picking, try to picking elite wide receivers one pick earlier, because we can usually expect one of these tight ends to fill the flex pretty frequently. So
For sure.
double tight end is not something I'm doing a lot, but it's something I'm okay with if it makes sense. And like here, like this kind of correlation, this is awesome for the playoff weeks. So
Yes. I mean, and I think maybe you and Chris talked about it maybe in the very first stream. Double tight end was plus EV in the very first Best Ball Mania. I don't know if it was in
mhm.
subsequent years. I don't think it was last year just because no one else did anything outside of
there
Kelsey.
there's
But
only there's only one elite tight end last year.
right, so uh, yeah, I mean, I still think it's going to be unique, and I think it definitely has a chance as long as everyone else doesn't suck.
Yeah, as long as yeah, we should be okay.
By the way, shout out to Fear My Turtle who's in your draft. He and I are actually from the same hometown.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, uh,
Oh, is he watching the stream? What's up, dude?
yeah. He so he writes for. Well, actually, I think he just left Roto Grinders. I believe they're starting their own site or doing whatever maybe. But yeah, he hit me up one day and was like, "Hey, do you are you from Maryland?" I was like, "Yeah," and we started talking and come to find out like my best friend's sister is like his one of his best friends or something. So it was super small world.
Yeah, man. That kind of stuff is fun.
Yeah, you always think this industry is smaller than it actually is. So
Right? We make it seem so big on Twitter. So many personalities.
right. Well, so okay, so let me go back to this question that I was going to ask you since we got a few picks in between here. So I was asking Chris about this too. Like some of these teams, like for the first 5 picks or so, they're there's a limited amount of teams that lead to full stacking for the playoff weeks. There are going to be teams like Tennessee, Houston, Carolina to an extent, like these teams that we want to get exposure to. And if we want to get unique, we can, triple stack those teams. Do you think about that? And if so, how do you force those into your exposure?
Um, what do you mean triple stack? Like,
Let's just say like no one's going to have a CJ Stroud 15, 16, 17, right?
oh, okay, I get you. I mean, I'm so I haven't, like I said, the New England Buffalo Week 17 game is one I'm very exposed to, even though I didn't intend to do it. And I think that's kind of how it is with a lot of the with some of the other games. Like the games that we know we want to target, for example, the Kansas City game. Like I'm going to be way overweight on those, but then I didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm thinking about that too much yet. Honestly, like with the Spike Week draft hacker up, I just if there is a correlation, then I'm probably just going to take that guy. If there's no correlation, I mean, like you said, in conjunction with the stack seeker, I don't really have a problem with it. Yeah, I'll take any stack. I don't really care which stack it is. Was that your question? Like if I'll take like Carolina for example.
Kind of. I guess my question was like, let's say you've done 50 drafts and you have 0 Carolina stacks, or you have
Mm.
0 Houston or Tennessee or whatever. Because there's some teams that just don't have correlated opponents in the top
Right,
5 rounds
right,
or whatever.
right.
And you have to it really takes a concerted effort to stack those teams unless you luck into, a couple picks in rounds 5 through 10 that correlate.
Well, I guess those teams specifically too. It's pretty easy to get some mini stacks towards the end of the draft with some of those players.
True.
So I can usually find it later because it's really important later. Like there might be some players with no stacks, and again, like back to that question from the Discord, we can find mini stacks later pretty easily. And like it might not be the best, but if we can get just like there's a lot of time pretty low, but
Yeah. So it looks like maybe Chuck lost. Looks like he lost his service a little bit. We'll see if he gets back in here. I think he's back. Chuck, you back? Chuck, you back?
yep, yep, we are back.
All
I
right.
think I
Didn't
went.
didn't miss your pick, did you?
No, I went and took Tyler Lockett, so we had no correlation with Tyler Lockett for the playoffs, but I took him over the Week 15 correlation with Jordan Addison, and then Kadarius Toney is someone I'm avoiding until some of this free agency stuff settles down, just in case. And I'm not super high on him anyway.
Fair enough.
Um, and so taking Tyler Lockett there, Deontay Johnson. I think that's actually my highest owned stack, Pittsburgh and Seattle for Week 17. I'm
Yeah.
taking a lot of Lockett. I'm okay taking Jackson Smith. I'll take Metcalf when he's there, and then Deontay Johnson is a really easy click for me. I don't love George Pickens, but I'm probably going to take him right here to get that 16-17 correlation.
I mean, it's too easy. It's too easy to do, and I think in particular, Lockett and Johnson, Deontay Johnson, are
Uh-huh.
undervalued by ADP. Like those are two guys that I'm willing to say at this point that I believe are undervalued by ADP. So it definitely makes sense, and they're very, very easy to stack.
Yeah, and like so Deontay Johnson finally is going above George Pickens, but how many articles have you seen on whatever saying this is the most undervalued, like, oh, he underperformed, 0 touchdowns, whatever.
Right, right, right.
And people are still hesitant to click on him. So
I mean,
I'm
I'm big on Pittsburgh as well. If you look at, I'll let you take this pick, but um, I'll ramble on about Pittsburgh after this next pick here. Who are you targeting?
I'm gonna take Pickens if he's available.
Okay.
If he gets, dude, that's frustrating.
You can't. That's the rule. When I'm on the stream, if you can't say a player's name out loud, or they get sniped.
I don't know. I don't expect these guys to be in here, but maybe they are.
It's just a universe thing.
What do you think about DeAndre Swift?
Probably sucks, but could win leagues. Is how I
Yeah,
look at it.
I think we're gonna take him as the RB1.
Okay.
So just real quick on DeAndre Swift, I started getting in on. I started talking myself into Kenneth Gainwell a couple weeks ago. Just Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift. We know their injury history, and the week 17 matchup for Philadelphia is really good versus Arizona. And so I've been drafting more Kenneth Gainwell, and then someone posts something on Twitter about Kenneth Gainwell, and he jumps up a round and a half in a week. So
I think it was Evan Silva said his highest own. I mean, to me, when I was looking, Gameo was. I mean, like, why would you not take him where he was being drafted, right? Like, we've
yeah.
seen him being used in this offense that you're going to use committees, and like if one guy gets hurt, it's his value skyrockets. So I think that was huge. And then I think it was Elliot Shore Parks, one of the most trusted Philly beat reporters, actually tweeted that he thinks Penny could be a surprise cut based on the amount of money
Right.
they gave him and Trey Sermon standing on the roster. Which, if Penny gets cut, then obviously that boosts both Swift and Gainwell. So I think that was a big thing. But going back to the Pittsburgh point, honestly, I think they're the most undervalued stack possible.
Mhm.
With Pickens, with Deontay Johnson, Fryermuth very easy to draft, and then Kenny Pickett. You look at the second half of that season last year. I mean, they were middle of the pack when it came to offensive scoring compared to how bad they were in the first half of the season. So to me, that's just the easiest undervalued full stack that's easy to get to, and they correlate with a lot of the guys that are easy to take in the top, 6, 7, 8 rounds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the maybe the Colts aren't as easy, but the Bengals and Seattle like are two of the easiest teams to stack. And
Yes,
Kenny Pickett, I mean, the guys around him. I actually believe in a couple of these guys though. Matt Stafford, I don't think Kyler Murray is going to miss half the season, so I'm okay drafting him here.
agreed.
And then Brock Purdy, like I think there's a lot of good quarterbacks down here. Yeah, Kenny Pickett is definitely one of them too.
That actually leads me perfectly into my next question I have for you was, which I haven't talked about just yet. I'm curious to get your take. Is situations like San Francisco,
Mhm.
situations like Tennessee, situations like Vegas, even if Garoppolo is fucked up. Like, do are you willing to? And again, this goes back to people aren't stacking these teams fully, right? Are you willing
Mhm.
to game stack, but without the quarterback, right? Like you take multiple Vegas players and correlate them 15, 16, 17, but don't take a quarterback. Same with San Francisco, which is a little bit easier and more trustworthy.
I mean, with those teams, it seems fine, right? Or I guess with San Francisco, I'd have to think about the Raiders more. But yeah, I mean, I'm personally taking Brock Purdy a lot anyway. But it feels kind of weird to draft, say, a running back and a receiver from the same team and not have the quarterback, right?
Right.
But it there was a positive correlation though. I'm pretty sure in the playoffs last season, and it makes sense. Just more opportunity for touchdowns, I guess, if they both have a good game. But yeah, I think yeah,
And I think it makes sense for teams where literally three quarterbacks could be playing in week 17. And
hmm
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Darnold is playing and Darnold's really not being
right.
drafted, right? Garoppolo, if he's out, like that could be Hoyer or that rookie that they drafted that is getting a little bit of buzz. So I think it makes more sense for those teams that don't have clear quarterback situations that in probably 99% of drafts, no one's going to have that stack anyways.
Yep.
Whereas if you're stacking a team that there's a clear quarterback that people are going to have, you're not missing out on that extra correlation that someone else in the championship rounds might have.
Yes. Yep. Then you
All right.
get the other guy in there in the playoffs, and you're good. There's a situation that's reminding me of. I'll try to think of specifically a situation that happened in the last playoffs. It's
Okay.
kind of similar to your question.
Okay. Whoever you're about to
Uh,
draft, don't say their name out loud. Just
I was
draft them.
gonna say I am shocked this guy didn't take James Conner.
It's because you didn't say his name. That's why. It's
You're
I'm
right.
telling you.
Just gotta keep it a secret.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
works. Um, Connor's another guy that I'm willing to say is being way undervalued.
yeah. Especially we got him a little bit late too.
Yeah.
And it's same thing like the injury concerns, but if he's not hurt, he's gonna smash.
Yeah. I mean, even if they suck, he's going to get, multiple receptions per game. So we'll take that out of our, eighth round pick.
Right. And it's like either way, if Kyler's in or not. If Kyler's in, I think it's good because more scoring. But if Kyler's out, like James Conner is the man anyway.
Exactly.
All right. Do you have any feelings on is it Keontae Ingram? Is he probably the backup running back there?
I
They have
guess
someone
so.
else.
Yeah, I guess so. Let me double check one thing really quickly. But Yeah, he was the guy I was looking at, and again, he's a guy that's definitely not being drafted. People don't even want to draft the starter, so they're not drafting the backup there.
Yeah, I think I've taken him a couple times and then I stopped, but because I got nervous or something. But these are guys that you should have. Oh man, I need to keep these tweets open so I can credit these guys. But someone on Twitter posted a really good post about it might have been TJ Hernandez. What was I gonna say? It was kind of like who was the backup for the top 7 or 8 running backs picked, and half of them ended up being great picks at ADP towards the end of the draft. And it's guys like Keontae Ingram or Kenneth Gainwell, Chase Brown, whoever the backups are towards the end.
Yes.
So we're taking Tua.
Okay, cool. Perfect. That's easy.
That worked out.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it is Keontae. The other guys they have are Corey Clement, who they brought in late last season, Tyson
Mhm.
Williams, who's despite his best efforts in Baltimore, moved around a bit, and they really didn't draft anybody. So I have to believe it is Keontae Ingram and the coaching staff. It is a new coaching staff, that is one thing, but again, they didn't bring anybody in to replace him. So
No, it's kind of weird because he didn't do anything last year, right? He had like 7 carries in his NFL career. Kind of reminds me of Zamir White with that Josh Jacobs situation. So, are
yeah.
you someone? Have you been in on Zamir White? Is that someone you've been drafting in the last couple drafts you've been doing? If you've done some since that news.
No, I should be though. I certainly should be. I mean, there are guys like you said, there are running back situations where no one is drafting the backups, and so
Hmm.
you just got to take those shots on those guys, which I admittedly have not been doing. I'm trying to think of some other names here. Like, is anyone drafting? I guess Elijah Mitchell for San Francisco. I'm just trying to think of some earlier round guys that no one's drafting the backup for.
Yeah, well, Elijah Mitchell to me, I don't. I mean, I guess I get it a bit, but he's going kind of early, right? He's
Hmm.
going. I mean, Jalen Warren came up a lot. Tank Bigsby was a guy I was drafting a ton at 170, but now he's 140. I'm not really drafting him that much anymore. He's not really that value that I thought he was.
He's still moving up, and he could get screwed over with a Zeke or Lenny or Kareem
Yep.
Hunt type of signing. So um, let me see. I guess so. Like Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford, people finally caught on to that. Jerome Ford's ADP has skyrocketed the past month or so.
Yeah.
Uh, no one's drafting Saquon's backup, right? Matt Breida, I guess it is. The thing here is right. There's some uncertainty, and if people don't know, there's not going to touch it. But we will
Yep.
know in August or September. And I think it is if you're drafting a bunch of teams just to take some shots because if not, these guys are going to be like round 15, right? Maybe get a
Hmm.
little bit around of value in a couple months. So I don't know, man. I think you got to take some shots there.
I agree. And the guy I was thinking was the backup for the Giants was Eric Gray. And so you might
Yeah.
not
See,
even
right. I don't
like,
know.
no one knows what's going on. So,
Right.
yeah.
Let me see here. There's another name that I was just looking at. Um, Ramondre Stevenson. So they just waived James Robinson, who people really weren't drafted anyways. But they had the two guys who came in last year, the two rookies, Harris and the other guy's name is slipping my mind. But probably half the league is situations where the backups aren't being drafted.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll never know. It's all guessing, but if you can figure it out close to the season, take a little tidbit from training camp or something. I mean, like, because I think we were talking about exposures in Discord a little bit too. Like, I don't really have a running back in my top exposures from the late rounds, and I feel like that's bad because that you should probably have a couple guys back here that are your go-tos, just if you need some help at running back or you need that fifth or sixth running back. And I don't really have one right now. Do you have a guy who's just your absolute go-to at the end,
Uh,
like the guys we've been talking about?
yeah, not a go-to. And again, I said I've only done 20 so far. My highest exposure is 20%, and it probably should be higher, but it's Mostert, mostly because I miss out on Miami correlation a lot of the times, and he could be a home run hitter, get you a couple weeks. Khalil Herbert, I'm betting on the talent there. That's a really messy situation. That again, it's kind of like the other situation when no one knows who to draft. It's like the Baltimore
Hmm.
wide receiver situation, but there's going to be some value there somewhere. I don't know
Yeah,
who it is on a run heavy team. I'm willing to bet on the talent in Khalil Herbert and then Gainwell, the guy we just talked about. Those three guys are my top owned running backs, but again, only 20% or so.
I like it. So this is a situation I was in on the last draft where I'm weak. I'm kind of weak at receiver. I need a receiver, but the next receivers are people I'm not interested in. Did some research, and it's actually still correct to pick the next receiver.
Oh, really?
Um, just because you're getting value on these guys, they're still not adding as much. And the problem is, I hate all these guys. I'm just going to take Gallup since I ran out of time.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so like I reached on Gallup by what then 10 picks, which he kind of jumped a little bit too. It's kind of weird he's going so high. But like I could have taken what Geno Smith probably would have been the pick if I didn't force a receiver right now. Don't love these running backs right here. But the idea is that I need a receiver anyway. By the time my pick comes back, like here, I was only 5 picks away. There was still going to be a receiver on the board that I like.
Right.
But when the rest of the draft room is pounding this position so hard, you're going to leave yourself behind, and you need bodies at receiver who are going to run routes. And just the farther we go down this list, it's less likely these guys are going to run the routes. Now, there's a bunch of good names in here that we're going to talk about, but you don't want your whole team to be made up of them. So.
Right. Right. No, exactly. And I think I'll let you make your next pick, but uh, I'll just posit a little bit here about ADP when you're on the end like you are with the second overall pick. As much as we say stick to ADP, or when you're at the ends, just for the people who are inexperienced in best ball or haven't done a ton of drafts so far, you're going to have quite a few, if not a handful of players on your team if you're stacking that are way above ADP, that you're taking way above ADP just because they're not going to make it back to you. And so if they're
Mhm.
7 or 8 picks above ADP or 10, 11 picks, that doesn't really matter when you're at the ends because you're not going to get back to them anyways.
Yep. Yep. I agree. So I said I wasn't in on a Caney, but I think I might take him just to beef up this week 17 stack. I do like having a running back with my quarterback, and the idea with this guy specifically is that he's the starting running back in the playoff weeks.
True.
Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson. So Jeff Wilson is actually my. It's funny you said you have a lot of Raheem. Jeff Wilson is the guy that I have a lot of. He's my guy towards the end of the running back run. So I guess we'll see which one scores a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, so that's interesting. They say you try to get a running back with your quarterback. Is that a uniqueness angle, or is that because I mostly have been avoiding that, mostly on purpose as well? Is that
Mhm.
something I should be trying to do?
I mean, it kind of depends on the running back too. Like, it feels better if they catch passes because then there's just more correlation. But
Right.
when I was looking at the roster constructions of the Week 17 teams, there were a lot. There were a decent amount of teams with a quarterback, running back, receiver. And I mentioned that not having the quarterback but having a running back and receiver from the same team has a slight positive correlation. There's a bit of a correlation with having the running back from the team too. It's just if they're doing well, it's just more points, I guess.
Sure. That
I,
makes sense.
I I can try to find what information I was looking at for you later.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
But that is something that I do. So that my main stack is obviously Miami, Baltimore. And a lot of the time I'll typically have 5 players from my main stack if I can help it. If I can get like the 5 players I really like.
Okay.
I don't know who the 5th player I would add to here. They would be someone on the Ravens, probably one of the receivers, but I already missed them, so it's not a thing on this team anymore.
It does. And actually, someone in the chat, Nigel, mentioned him, and he's another guy that's just below that top tier for me in late round running back exposure. Is Gus Edwards. So
Gus Edwards. Yeah, he's someone I'm adding at the end too. I'm okay getting to him.
a more philosophical question, and maybe it's a statistical question. I don't know, but on teams with super mobile quarterbacks like Baltimore, like some of these other teams, is it still worthwhile taking 2 guys for that Week 17 mega stack? And is it worth taking not necessarily because you expect both of those guys from the running quarterbacks team to end up in your best ball lineup in Week 17, but it just gives you 2 possibilities to end up with correlation with your
Mhm.
Miami stack.
Yeah, I think it's more just 2 shots on goal. We're not really expecting both of them to go off, but, I mean, kinda thinking about, like, the Cincinnati Chiefs game, like, there's, like, 7 receivers who could go off in that game, right?
Yeah,
7 players, so it's
yeah,
like,
right.
just mix it up even within your own draft 'cause, I think you said something earlier, like, so with the uniqueness thing, like, only 400 people are gonna make the finals in this tournament, and it's like, why are we drafting for week 17 when only 400 people make the finals? Well, if every team I draft is correlated for week 16 and 17, then whichever team gets through
Yes.
is I'm going to be happy with the correlation. So that's the
Yes.
idea. I mean, I drafted 500 teams last year, and I made two finals, and then I was like one less reception for one of my opponents for making a third finals. And I think that's about expectation. If
Sure.
you max out this contest, I think you can expect to make the finals twice in 3 years. I don't think it's quite once every year. And actually, they made this contest bigger this year, so it might be different. I'm thinking of the math for last year, but typically three 150 maxes, you should expect two finals. And that's
Okay.
just if everything is exactly average.
Right. Okay. And okay. Let me mull that over for a second while I think about that. Who are you thinking about here? Don't say the name, just roughly. Give me some hints.
um, the guy off of your team that you are very high on. Like, is it too early to take Jalen Warren, or should I take Adam Thielen, Van Jefferson, KJ Osborne is someone I'm very interested in, but also maybe we'll see if they come back to us.
I feel like Warren has been dropping in drafts. I was taking him a little bit earlier. I think he's dropping. I mean, he seems like a clear league winner if something happens to Najee Harris.
Right. It's funny because he was actually so that article I was referencing earlier about the backups being, he called them home run picks. He actually had Jalen Warren as a win for last year, considering how late he went. He was past pick 200.
Right.
And so, and
True.
I'm high on Najee. So if something happens to Najee, I should be good for Warren too.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean, Thielen, I think Thielen's dust. I'm not really loving the situation change, and
Yeah.
really, I'm trying to get Mingo if I can, and if I miss out on him, uh, I've been taking one or two shots on Laviska Shenault, who
Mhm.
Frank Reich said again, pure, this is like peak May discussion, peak May coaching talk. They want to use him like Debo Samuel, which like even if
Yeah.
he's like 1/10 of how they use Debo Samuel, that's probably worth an 18th round pick. So
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I want my team to use my fourth receiver like Debo Samuel
yeah,
too. Just,
no shit, right?
just I can say, yeah, like I can say things.
Yeah, right. um,
So no on Thielen. I was initially completely out on Thielen, never going to draft him, but I've talked myself into drafting him a few times.
yeah, I mean, I have two, mostly for correlation. Do you have a Jacksonville guy on this roster or no?
No, I do not. I'm probably going to end up. Tank Bigsby is already gone. Yeah, we're not going to end up with that Jacksonville correlation, unfortunately.
And because you said his name out loud, he just got picked, so you can't take Thielen anyways.
Oh, I that was a fake out,
Yeah,
so they fell for it.
I'm gonna start using that myself now. Okay, good to know.
If Tyler Marset took KJ Osborne right here, I would just close the draft. But so KJ Osborne is someone I think is going a little bit underappreciated. I mean,
Agreed.
who's the third receiver in Minnesota? Is it KJ Osborne?
It's Osborne, and honestly, like I know we all have high expectations for Jordan Addison, but there's a universe where Osborne is number two this year. Like Addison
Yeah,
just doesn't acclimate to the pros, so I agree with you.
because the thing, like we've seen KJ Osborne do it. If he has the exact same season he had last year, he's going to return crazy value at pick
Yes,
147.
yes,
And just because of rookies coming in, like Adam Thielen was whatever last year, but like he was still there, and KJ Osborne
right,
was fine. So
right. Totally agree.
I don't know if this is something I mentioned on the last stream, but Minnesota is definitely an offense I want to get more exposure to. Like it's really hard to get the number one. You pretty much have to get the number one pick.
Right.
But we can get Addison, and like he's kind of expensive though, Addison. But KJ Osborne, guy I've been targeting in the later rounds.
It's funny. The entire offense is probably a little bit more expensive than they should be. Addison is
Uh-huh.
probably a little too high. I think Hawkinson regresses some. He's a little too high. And as with the official Dalvin Cook news, Madison probably ends up too high as well. So it's a team that makes so much sense for stacking. They have such a high ceiling, but that high ceiling is priced in effectively. So
Well, Madison too. I'm actually surprised he's not going earlier. This draft he went 60. I've seen him mostly go, I guess in this range in round 6, but this doesn't seem terrible to take a shot on Madison that he just can maintain close to the efficiency that he had over a full
right,
season.
yeah, there seems to be a lot of skepticism. So that hasn't gotten outrageous. So maybe I take that back. I do agree. If he does settle in there, or doesn't bump up anymore, I agree. Um,
Yeah, it's not bad.
Going back to your
Is
point
he?
about, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead. I'm good.
Um, going back to your point about the expectation for finals, number of finals appearances for 150 lineups,
Hmm.
2 finals every 3 years, roughly, right?
Yeah.
That's based on average. Now, if we're not trying to grab super ADP value. We don't, I'll say I don't, I'm not going to speak for you. I don't believe that my skill is crushing the ADP value and getting more wins out of my league as a result of that. So if I'm expecting roughly average, maybe even below average advance rates out of my 12 team league, because we're also factoring in and actively trying to stack week 15 and week 15 and week 16, excuse me, for most of our team, do we think that we can surpass that 2 out of every 3 years number if we're, again, if we're average advancing out of the regular season, but really heavily on 15, 16, 17?
Yeah, because that's one thing where I think I actually talked about this with you before, not on stream, but something about it was regarding the NBA playoff best ball contest where I expected a lower advance rate just based on the players I was drafting, the teams I was drafting specifically. If but I expected those teams that did advance to have a higher chance of winning or making the finals.
For sure.
And that's kind of the same thing here. Although I expect both. I expect a higher advance rate and I expect a higher chance of winning the finals. Just there's so many people playing in this one, and I mean, just by talking about this stuff right now, doing some research, our edge in this I think is so great. Now, realizing that edge is another question that might take a lifetime, but
Yep. Just look at my
I
recent DFS results will tell you that the realization sometimes lags behind the expectation. So,
right. So as long as we're doing stuff right, yeah, I think that because last year I still had a higher than average advance rate, but my three biggest player takes were pretty much all wrong. Marquise Brown worked out, but he got hurt. DJ Moore was bad, and Brandon Cooks was bad, and I had those guys all 30%.
damn,
And I overcame that, and DJ Moore helped in the playoff weeks, so low advance rate,
yep,
but had a spike week in the playoffs. It's awesome, and so you can overcome it, but I'd like a higher than average advance rate, and I think every team I get to the playoffs will have a higher than average advance rate to week 16 and then 17. So I
fair enough. I'll let you pick here and have another follow up question. So,
think I'm just going to go MVS, get my Kansas City Bengals correlation. There's no other. I mean, Richie James. I haven't been drafting Richie James. We were all about him the first couple of weeks, and
same. Um, my next question to you, I think I lost it here. Let me ask you a secondary question while I think of that. Who are you looking to get as your second quarterback here?
I actually didn't think about that at all. But I think the answer is pretty clear, right? I missed out on Ayuk. Otherwise, I'd go Brock Purdy every time. But I'm gonna get that cheap stack here as long as I don't think any of these guys are taking a quarterback. This guy has four. Tyler Marset has two.
Okay.
I should be good to get. Yeah, like Jalen Hurts and Geno Smith. You're done at quarterback guy. You don't need a third one.
You'd be shocked,
Yep.
as we've seen many times before.
Yeah.
Uh,
Quarterbacks score the most points.
uh, you know, I actually don't know who you're taking here. Let me see. Okay, I'm not gonna say it,
It's
but
our boy. Yeah.
the guy that I've actually been getting a decent amount of too is Derek Carr,
Mhm.
and he's easy. If you miss out on your second quarterback that you're targeting, it's easy to get like some backdoor correlation and backdoor stacking because Rashid Shaheed
Mhm.
is going so late. Jawan Johnson is going so late. God forbid you like Taysom Hill, he's going so late. Um, and they have a lot of correlation with some of the guys that I've been getting so far. So I think Derek Carr should be an upgrade over to Andy Dalton, I would imagine, in that offense. So I don't think it's really a downgrade for any of the skill position players, and he's going pretty late.
I think it's a downgrade for Taysom Hill.
Yes.
If you're on Taysom Hill, just less
Yep.
opportunity for him to play quarterback snaps.
True. Definitely agree there.
We're taking Kenny Pickett. All right, we did it.
Yes, sir.
Do you think we need a third quarterback, or we're probably okay? I mean, we got Tua, so the expectation we took Tyreek Hill with our first pick. We took Tua. We expect him to be top five.
Yeah, if they're not, we're fucked anyway. So,
Yeah, and
um,
then
yeah, when are you taking three quarterbacks? The only time I ever do it is if I take two quarterbacks super late. Like I've really waited on quarterback, or if I have one of those situations where I take a shot on an ambiguous quarterback situation, I'll take a third one just in case. But
yeah, unless Pretty so unless I have like literally just Patrick Mahomes, I'm probably taking a third quarterback when I draft Kyler Murray.
Oh,
Even
yes.
though I
Yes.
already mentioned that I think Kyler Murray plays most of the season, so maybe it's a little unnecessary. But if I miss out on like if I don't have anyone before Daniel Jones, Tua, like if my first two quarterbacks are Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, like that's probably good enough to not draft a third quarterback, right?
I would think
Uh,
so. And again, if they let you down, or like you're probably in trouble anyways because you're correlating those guys, and if they just happen to bust,
mhm.
I don't know. I think it is, and um, two quarterbacks are generally more plus EV, right? Two quarterback
Yeah.
lineups. So
Yeah, like people, I don't want people to misread that though, because if you have two quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts and Geno Smith, I think that's fine. Maybe Geno's a little bit early, but I think it's fine because the playoff weeks having two good quarterbacks is awesome. But if you're drafting like Kenny Pickett and Derek Carr as your two quarterbacks, and
right,
that's like just because it fits in that playoff or that lineup construction, it's not. It has a negative. That's going to have a negative advance rate for sure.
a little bit of sample
Um,
bias there for sure.
yeah, so if I'm like in this range, I'm probably taking three of these guys. But then I'm also considering, do I have an elite tight end? Do I have to take three tight ends on this team?
Yeah,
Because my preferred build is just taking three tight ends at the end of the draft.
truth.
Maybe like one guy up here, like Chig or Tyler Higbee, and then two guys at the end, but same thing. So it's all about just planning out your positions. If you're really strong at receiver, really strong at running back, then maybe you can do some weird things on some team. I mean, I'm sure I have some teams with three quarterbacks and three tight ends, but not common.
Yeah, back to the Kyler Murray point. Yeah, I'm willing to keep only two quarterbacks on teams where my other quarterback is a super late bye week. Like give time
Mhm.
definitely for
Yes,
Kyler to get off, but that's just another
yes.
thing to keep in mind. Who you mentioned going three late tight end builds a lot. Who are some of these guys that you like late that you're picking up on?
Well, to me, Hayden Hurst, like this is the number one receiver in Carolina, is it not?
He's
Maybe.
undrafted, right? Like, he's not. No one's drafted him.
Yeah, he's free in every draft. I have some interest in Luke Musgrave, but this is more of a we'll see what's going on in training camp. But if he's starting, then he might be an okay value, even though we're pretty much out on Green Bay this year. If Jake Ferguson's starting, he's okay. But the guys I'm actually drafting, Noah Fant, Hayden Hurst, Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry a little bit if all those other guys are gone. I feel like
A-
my
any K Dotton interest? I feel like he's
actually
starting
yes.
in.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Not as much anymore after post NFL draft, but before the draft and the big board, I was taking Kate Auden quite a bit actually at the end of drafts. And then
Cool.
Dawson Knox, like he's going to score a touchdown this year. This is too late for Dawson Knox, and Tyler Conklin, I think, is a pretty good tight end this late too.
I agree. There's a bunch here. There's a bunch here. And it's a really good. If you miss out on any of the early tight ends, it's a really good strategy because again, it's going to be frustrating some weeks, but you're not managing it, right? And you have 1,000 teams, so just take these
Yeah.
and don't worry about it.
And here's the thing: if you're drafting a bunch of teams, you're never going to look at your worst team unless you specifically go to. If you're
Yeah,
scrolling through your teams and your
right.
rankings, you're only going to click at like, oh, this is my highest scoring team. Who'd I got? Like, you're not going to go to the bottom and
Truth.
see which teams underperformed. Like, you probably should, so you know if it's something you need to adjust for next season. But it ultimately does not matter.
Right. No, you're right. I mean, maybe you make the playoff weeks and you're like, Christ, my three tight ends are Hurst and Musgrave and Kate Otten. And then you're like, okay,
Hmm.
now I'm rooting for these guys. But yeah, again, very rarely you're gonna see those three names in front of your eyeballs.
Right. Is there anyone here that stands out to you at anything? I guess the cover boy.
Which we haven't talked about. I think Chuba Hubbard's another value too. I don't think he's a great player, but
I like Chuba Hubbard. Yeah. Or not. We might just go for Chuba Hubbard. Actually, I'm gonna go for Ty J Spears here.
okay.
We're getting a little bit of value, and I really like we don't have a Houston player, which we would usually in this situation probably have Nico Collins or Dalton Schultz. But if Derrick Henry is not starting in Week 15 and Week 17, and Ty J Spears is, then he's one of the most valuable picks, right? I mean, they get Houston. The assumption is that the Titans are going to run all over him if it's Derrick Henry, if it's Ty J Spears, either way.
Yep. 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 I agree. I mean, maybe you get some correlation there, but the nice thing is, again, the Tennessee Houston, unless you take Derrick Henry early, are really reasonable to mini stack
Hmm.
late in the draft because you can take Nico super late, John Mechie, who was a star before blowing out his ACL in a national championship game. They took him last year, and then he had the unfortunate disease. But now he's back. and then even Robert Woods if you think he's not dead. So
And it's like, so Robert Woods on the Adam Thielen point too, like, I don't know, young quarterback, they are veterans. They're not very good anymore, but there still have to be some kind of safety blanket. Like there has to still be some kind of volume or floor volume, right?
right, I would think so, right? I don't. Again, it's tough to tell, and but I'm willing to get some of those guys. And again, if you need the correlation, it's very cheap and easy to do.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me see. So how many receivers do you have? You have 7, and you have 5 running backs.
Yeah. What
Uh,
are you thinking for this team?
that's a great question. Um, I'm always leaning on the side of less running backs, but with DeAndre Swift as your number one, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of interested in taking Ty Chandler actually.
Yeah, he's on the cover, so let him, and that gives us some correlation too. So
It's nice that that worked out. So, like, we love Minnesota, and I said I want more exposure. Their Week 17 game, Green Bay. There's just not a single run back I want from that game. Maybe Aaron Jones, if I get him a few picks late, but that's an offense I'm just so out on this year.
yeah, I think their ADP is reflected too. I'm in a little bit. And I think I may be biased because I've been fortunate to get the number one pick so much. So I've had Jefferson on my team, and I've been actively seeking
Mhm.
out Green Bay correlation. So, if this evens out a little bit, I may not be as high as on some of the guys as my exposures may indicate now. So, um, really quickly, we should talk about it. I think you and Chris maybe talked about it last time, but this Minnesota running back situation, Ty Chandler on the cover of this video, McBride is someone that people are talking about as well, and maybe the true actual early down running back if Madison goes down. I know Matthew Berry's newsletter, which has tons and tons of subscribers, sent out a message today or yesterday about these two guys being late round picks in best ball. So I imagine we'll see McBride's ADP rise a bit because Chandler's ADP, I think, as of this morning, has risen the most over the last 7 days of any player. So,
Like, yeah.
what do you think? Are you getting to McBride at all, or is this an avoid situation?
Which one was the fifth round pick? I want whichever one was drafted into fifth round.
Yeah. Let me see here. Let me double check here for you. Yeah, McBride was drafted in the 7th round. So
Okay, then yeah, we want Ty Chandler. I mean,
that
we have
is
no
hashtag
information.
analytics.
That's the only information we have. Like the NFL scouts already did the work for us. They know more than I do. This guy was drafted in the fifth. This guy was drafted in the seventh. So this guy's better, right?
And not to mention, like Ty Chandler did it in preseason DFS, or I'm sorry, preseason. We played him in preseason DFS. Did it in preseason. I think it was, maybe number one, but high in PFF's elusive rating during that preseason. McBride, granted, ran for a bunch of yards, if not the most yards in college football last year. So yeah, he has that going for him. But again, when in doubt, default. But again, the ADP reflects that. So
Mhm.
I don't know if your 5th versus 7th round analytics Chuck gets us anywhere.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
Well, the situation will be more clear. If you're drafting these guys now and you get it right before training camp, then you're going to be pretty happy to be
Yes.
slightly overweight on one of them. Like you might be disappointed if you're wrong, but it's a risk we take drafting this early. And
Yes.
now that I'm thinking about it, like we said, we wanted the sixth running back because we're a little nervous about DeAndre Swift, but we took DeAndre Swift with the idea that he's healthy in Week 17 playing against Arizona.
Right. True. 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 That
So
is true.
maybe this is drafting against ourselves. Well, I still don't mind having six running backs since we took our second and third one kind of late, also. But
Yeah, it's a balance, right? It's like you want to draft your team as if it's right, but also to me, we're drafting 6 running backs here for the regular season, not necessarily the playoffs, because we just need
mhm,
God get us 2 guys to give us points every single week. And
mhm,
while we may struggle to do that, at least giving us 6 guys gives us one more chance of doing that.
yep. And that's like one thing I always think of too when looking at some of my playoff teams from last year. Like, how many running backs did I have healthy? And some teams maybe I had three, where two of them weren't really viable, and then some teams I had the full health, but um, yeah, so it's just that's something that I consider, and it's not really something that you should be considering because it's injuries are completely random, right? But it does make me kind of want to have a little bit more safety at running back just for the teams that do get there, so I have the best chance of getting to the finals.
Right, for sure. That makes a ton of sense. All right, who are you closing out here with, Chuck?
Robert Woods or Marvin Jones?
Marvin Jones
You
is a guy I've
have
been interested in too, especially if you have a team that's a little more back heavy or rookie heavy. Marvin Jones gets the
Mhm.
first 6 weeks while Jameson Williams is betting on college football. So I don't mind it.
Well, hopefully he's done with that now, Jameson Williams, because I have drafting him quite frequently.
Well, maybe he just learned to draft outside of uh, areas where you're not allowed to bet, or maybe he has a beard working for him and he's not using his own goddamn account and betting sports this time. All right, so Chuck may have froze. If you guys can still hear me, I think Chuck may have froze. We were all in suspense to see who his final pick is. I'll use this time until Chuck comes back to say make sure you are subscribed to the channel here at Occupy Fantasy. Yeah, it looks like Chuck's gone, so we'll see if he comes back here. But remember, subscribe here on YouTube, get notified when we go live, upload these videos. We're doing streams 3 times per week or videos, sometimes pre-recorded for Underdog Fantasy. Remember, use promo code Occupy to get a 100% deposit match bonus on Underdog Fantasy. If you haven't signed up already, use that extra $100 to start getting into some drafts. Free money is good money. Use code Occupy when you sign up. Link in the description helps you out there. We have the tools at OccupyFantasy.com, our ADP tracker, which shows ADP movement over the last 7 days, as well as our Stack Seeker, which shows you which players, where they're being drafted, how to stack them for the all important playoff weeks. Not sure if Chuck's going to come back here.